True. But first, a massive show of force right now on the streets of New York City. Occupy protesters by the hundreds are converging on Wall Street, hoping to shut down the financial district. Today's day of action is to mark the movement's 2-month anniversary. This afternoon, the group plans to occupy the city's subways and then march to the Brooklyn Bridge.
Occupy Wall Street protesters say they want today to be a day of nonviolent protest, although one demonstrator has been arrested for making terrorist threats. In a YouTube video, you could hear the 29-year-old yelling, quote, "In a few days, they're going to see what a Molotov cocktail could do to Macy's." He's also heard threatened to, quote, "burn down the city." So let's go to our Mary Snow. She's live on the phone because she's in the middle of that crowd of people you're seeing. So, Mary, what's the mood?
Well, I'll tell you, it's tense but peaceful. We're at the tail end of this protest, and I have to tell you, from the time we first went on the air this morning around 6 o'clock to now, I mean, the crowd has just swelled. We're on Nassau Street, which is right behind, and where we're standing right now is right behind the Federal Reserve, about a block away from the New York Stock Exchange. Protesters started off in Zuccotti Park. They met, gathered, organized, and then began marching down Nassau Street with the target of going to the New York Stock Exchange, chanting, "We are the 99%. Again, this is just one of a number of marches they plan to hold through the day. You mentioned they plan to occupy some subway stations later today, and then the biggest march is expected around 5 o'clock tonight, when they are planning to march on the Brooklyn Bridge. Very heavy police presence here. From my vantage point, and what I've seen so far, we haven't seen any unrest. It's been fairly peaceful.
Mary, just wondered, we talked to the deputy mayor a short time ago. He said if the protesters attempt to enter any buildings in Wall Street, they will be immediately arrested. I'm wondering if the protesters will even get into that area to do that, if that's their wish.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, and then Christine can also speak to this, around the New York Stock Exchange, the security is so tight on any given day, so getting into that building would really be very difficult. We haven't seen any protesters from where I am. Again, I'm at the tail end of this protest. We haven't seen any protesters trying to enter any buildings. We so far have just seen them on the street, but they have really just filled Nassau Street, which is, again, behind the New York Stock Exchange and the Federal Reserve.
It's an interesting point, Mary, because since September 11th, security in that part of the country must be the most secure of any place else. I mean, there already is a pretty substantial police and private security presence around all of those places. So shutting down Wall Street, certainly they could occupy the area, but shutting down, it will be business as usual at the New York Stock Exchange and elsewhere, but there will be a lot of people in the streets.
I think the irony here, you know, the point is to shut down Wall Street, and Wall Street, of course, is symbolic, but many of the big banks have moved out of that area, right?
Yeah, many of them have moved uptown, or some of them have even moved to Connecticut and other places as well. You're right. All right, Mary Snow. Thanks, Mary.
Here's more from our interview this morning with Howard Wolfson. You know, I mentioned that he is the New York City Deputy Mayor for Government Affairs and Communications, and we asked him what the city's doing to get ready for today's big protest.
The Occupy Wall Street movement has said that this is going to be a massive protest. There are going to be tens of thousands of people in the street. Now, this is New York. We will be prepared. We are always prepared. This is a place where we honor the First Amendment, where people come and protest all the time. We're not going to let people walk across the Brooklyn Bridge on a roadway during rush hour. That's not legal. And my hope is that people will act peacefully. There's no indication that they won't. A massive protest is not incompatible with lawful activity, and we're hoping that people will observe the law.
Howard Wolfson also defended the city's decision to clear out Zuccotti Park, saying the situation was threatening the public safety.
Authorities say he had a direct interest in the president. This morning, the suspected White House shooter is now in custody. Oscar Ortega Hernandez was arrested at a Pennsylvania hotel yesterday. CNN's Athena Jones is live at the White House with more on this. Still trying to find out his motivation, but we're learning more about him, aren't we?
Well, yes, we are. Well, first things first, we know that he'll appear in court. He's set to appear in court this afternoon at 2 p.m. in Pittsburgh, there in U.S. Magistrate Court, and so we expect to hear the charges against him. We know that the U.S. Park Police, in issuing their warrant, issued a charge of carrying a dangerous weapon. But we'll have to hear more, wait until this afternoon to hear more. We know that Ortega Hernandez has a bit of a criminal history, mostly minor offenses in 3 states, Idaho, Texas, and Utah. In Idaho, he was found guilty of violations ranging from drug and alcohol violations to resisting arrest. But we also know that family and friends have told authorities that he had what they're calling a direction of interest toward the president or the White House. And so that makes it sound as though he may have been a little bit obsessed with President Obama. We'll have to wait and see what more we hear. It is interesting to note, though, that back in 1994, a shooter named Francisco Duran fired at least 29 shots into the White House right across the north lawn behind me. He was charged with 10 counts. One of them was attempting to assassinate the president. So that's certainly one of the charges that we could hear later this afternoon in court.
Right, Athena Jones at the White House. Thank you, Athena.
President Obama, by the way, is in Bali, Indonesia right now.